Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 25, Fascism. Let us have introduction about the unit. Fascism has been a significant 20th century development, originating from Italy and further maturing as an operational political doctrine in Germany. Fascism could apparently be an enduring reality owing to its innate ability in simplifying the complexity of political life to the advantage of the proponent of fascism. This was achieved by catering to the exigencies of us and they, wherein they were not only projected as adversities but essentially inferior as well. This political dualism, aggressively articulated by fascism, has, however, come to stay even after the collapse of Italy and Germany after the Second World War. It is in this context that a tap on fascism as presented by Hugh Trevor Roper that fascism began in 1922-23 came of age in the 1930s, ended in 1945 sounds too premature to easily reconcile with. The post-war political formation in both Western and Eastern Europe have been significant pointers to this trend. In fact, the ascendancy of an responsive state authority in the world, coupled with the hyper socio-cultural polarities of us and they, and all sorts of intolerances in interpersonal and communitarian behavior, clearly suggest that fascism is not only relevant today, but it represents for more complex and preserved dimensions that it originally displayed and carried out. It therefore poses more severe a challenge to mankind today than ever before. This unit addresses itself to all these enumerated issues. It seeks to present both the original and altered faces of fascism with a view to familiarizing you with the changing ideas, facts, and processes of fascism, besides enabling you to creatively dispel these trends with the help of a better understanding of the essence of life and a greater appreciation of the polarist reality that truly envelops mankind throughout the world. Next point is fascism, meaning and ideational profile. The meaning of fascism poses considerable difficulties owing to the fact that ideas characterizing fascism are untidy and uncollated. These are derived from a variety of sources and socio-cultural traditions. So one does not find a classical text like Marx Das Kapital to authoritatively outline and delineate the central idea of fascism. Moreover, fascism, chemical indifference to intellectual honesty, further contributes to the elusive ideational categories that it portrays. However, an attempt can still be made to construct a fascist worldview by taking recourse to such core ideas as statism, racism, imperialism, materialism, elitism, along with the foundational core of irrationalism. Some of these ideas could be apprehended by concentrating upon the intellectual heritage of the fascist worldview, uh, is a starting point. It can be safely proclaimed that fascism derived much from the mood of revolt that prevailed in Europe during the end of the 19th century. The stated mood of revolt drew heavily from the antithesis developed by social Darwinists against the prevailing liberal ideas, which they essentially perceived as outmoded. Social Darwinists particularly articulated a muscular philosophy which helped to foster an intellectual climate within which the myth of the racialism began to flourish. This section of unit seeks to construct the fascist worldview by focusing upon the above enumerated core ideas. Next point is the fascist worldview core ideas. First is irrationalism. Irrationalism constitutes the fundamental layer of the fascist worldview. Fascism suggests to repudiate reason and objective science. The complexities of life are such a fascist would argue that ordinary minds cannot grapple with it. Peace and objectivity would not help in conquering the complexity surrounding the human life. Mussolini once proclaimed that reason is barren intellectualism, lacking the true meaning. The ordinary mind is a wasteland full of mirages that give only an illusion of reality. Truth, according to fascism, is a subjective quality available only to a few gifted people whose will or spirit or personality is greater than that of the masses. Fascism drew ideational sustenance from such varied sources as Plato, Rousseau, Hegel, and George Sorel to erect the structure of irrationalism. For Mussolini, Hitler, etc., steering the people for action with no probable value or goal sanctity was enough. Feel, do not think was their consistent command to their followers. For igniting passions and feelings, they restored to their rhetorical talents rather than relying on some consistent and coherent ideology of a written text. Indiscriminate use of myths was also employed by the proponent of fascism. In particular, the myth of woke was most adustly articulated by fascism. although literally significantly the people woke also accompanied some abstract connotations, such as a system of absolute values, an innumerable metaphysical ideal of peoplehood. George Musse thus explained woke, just as individual men had a soul, so there existed a woke soul, which, like man's soul, give the woke into unique and unchanging character. This made the Germans, in particular, to transform their collective soul as wild and dynamic, based on emotions rather than on a tortured intellectualizing. Irrationalism was further developed under the German philosophical tradition. Fichte, Schleicher, and Nietzsche collectively sought to repudiate the idealist tradition and espoused irrationalism. These sources were frequently used and abused by the fascists for emphasizing irrationality and stirring up social passions so that fascism could delve there and make deeper inroads in the society. Next point is racialism. Strange though it may be, Hitler based his social theory on the works of a French scholar, Arthur de Gobineau, who was sent to Germany by France as a diplomat. His influence with the German led him to develop his theory of racial superiority, which ultimately had a great impact on German history. Placing Aryans as a original superior race in the world responsible for the rise of great civilization, Gobineau found the Aryans intermarrying with the inferior races, thereby causing both the decline of their civilization as well as their social superiority. Against this backdrop, Gobineau referred to the Germans as the purest because race they were the least mixed racially. The future of mankind therefore depended on the social purity of the Germans. Gobineau theory had profound influence among the Germans. Richard Wagner, in particular, popularized and dramatized the myths of the German racial superiority. Later on, another Germanized Englishman, Houston Stewart Chamberlain, sought to achieve what Wagner had achieved. Through his musical notes of Chamberlain combined Teutonic mythology, German philosophical irrationalism, and Gobineau social superiority theories. Chamberlain stressed the need for a strong leader to protect and maintain the German social purity by showing to them the way which they could be done. Hitler capitalized on these inheritances and condemned the Jews. He applauded the Germans for their racial superiority and particularly pinpointed the Jews for their villainy in the given scheme of things and peoples. His hatred for the Jews gets amply illustrated in the following passage. The Jew is a maggot in a rotting corpse. He is a plague worse than the Black Death of former times, a germ carrier of the worst sort, mankind's eternal germ, the spider that slowly sucks people's blood out of its pores. The typical parasite, a sponger who, like to harmful baculus, continues to spread the eternal bloodsucker, the people's vampire. Hitler categorized the peoples of the world into three racial categories: the culture creating race, that is the Aryans; the culture bearing race, that is the Lastis, slaves, and Orientals; the culture destroying race, Gypsies, Negroes, and Jews. The racialist imperative were so deeply rooted in the scheme that Hitler used to often proclaim that we think with our blood, so much that the fascist could claim that any knowledge dispelling racial superiority would not be knowledge at all. Science, like every other human product, is racial and conditioned by blood. Next point is statism derives towards a corporate state. The notion of Wokist spirit guided the course of state formation under Fascism. Wok was traced to medieval Germany, which was portrayed as a close-knit ruler society where Wok was conceived of as the organic wholeness of the national community, a community where the German spirit reigned supreme and subordinated all individual interests and priorities. Besides the myth of Walk, the writings of Hegel provided further impetus to fascist staticism. According to Hegel, the organic state was the ultimate idea which manifested as the power of reason actualizing itself as will. Thus, state was visualized by Hegel as an integrated community wherein individually and collectively the particular and the universal coexisted on the basis of reason. Thus portrayed, the state was conceived of as realizing spirit or reason in history. States membership enabled men to move beyond their private interest and embrace the common good. Moving further from the Hegelian premises and mutilating the mutual dependence of state and civil society, Mussolini proclaimed everything for the state and nothing outside the state. Thus, the Hegelian prescription of the state as an end in itself was interpreted by Mussolini for furthering the fascist cause. Hitler did not even require a distortion of Hegel ideas for legitimatizing his state. To him, the state was a means for furthering German racial superiority. The fascist staticism drew heavily from totalitarianism, a term used by Mussolini himself. He raised the stature of the state as the will of the wills, the good of the gods, and soul of the souls. As such, the state can make any demand, give any order, require any sacrifice, and people must obey and comply with state. Argued Mussolini happens to be the creator of rights and the good of goods. As such, it cannot tolerate any resistance from any quarter. It is therefore natural that each individual has to perform the maximum service to the state, no more and no less. Hitler, even while according to somewhat secondary status of the state, maximized his totalitarian ethos under his regime. He successfully converted every possible medium as a political tool and decisively ensured that it catered to the priorities set forth by his regime. The fascist conception of state authority laid the foundation of a corporate state structure. This and other such trends will be taken up in the next section dealing with the operational dynamics of fascism. Next topic is elitism. Fascism drew legitimacy from the notion of elitism as well. Both Hitler and Mussolini argued that people are essentially uneven in their mental makeup, physical strength, and spiritual endowments. As such, they cannot contribute eventually to civic and state affairs. Since their contribution is uneven, they cannot expect equal rewards for their dissimilar contributions to the society and the state. Here we want to wind up this lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.